in.
Yeah.
What's up? Welcome to a new episode of All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH. I'm your host, Kiff VH. And joining me in studio today is my talent manager, my VO manager, right? And that's the appropriate title.
Yeah, that's the title.
I don't know why I threw extra emphasis on that, but that's what it is. Maggie Cleary. Maggie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
We've worked together now for
4 years?
4? When did you start with Jason
I started
Marks?
in February of 2016.
Okay, yeah.
So, which it feels like it's been way longer than that, but I guess it only has been about 4 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we've worked together for what, like 7 years now? I don't think that's right. Well, where are you? You said you're. I have a ton of questions because I'm actually super curious about so many aspects about the scene of voiceover that you kind of swim in.
Yeah.
But let's back up. You were just telling me you're from Derry, New Hampshire.
I am, yes.
Born, bred, go to school there. Well, like what?
Well, I was born in Massachusetts, but I lived in New Hampshire from the time I was in like first grade until I graduated from high school. So basically bred at least there.
What did you like? Did you always want to work in this business, or what was your? Where did you see yourself when you were young?
Well, when I was young, I sort of bounced around between, like, I was never really 100% sure what I wanted to do when I was in, like, high school. I would, like, have an idea and be like, I'm going to be an architect, and then, like, a month later be like, I'm going to be a biologist. And so I kind of went through a couple phases of that. And then towards the end of being in high school, I decided that I was going to go into film. And so I went to Emerson in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Which was great, but as it turns out, I'm not really good at a lot of the parts of film. Like, I wanted to do, like, on-set stuff, and I went and did on-set stuff, and I had to wake up really early, which I didn't like. Yeah. And then I just wasn't really good at any of the practical aspects of it. I don't know. I don't have the mind for it. Initially I thought I would want to do, cinematography or something like that, and I just don't have the, like, setting up the electrical systems and figuring out all the different angles and stuff like that. I think it's very interesting. I think it's really cool, but it wasn't going to be me. So
yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I so like every time I see something that like Roger Deakins shoots or some beautiful, inspiring thing, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And then you see how the math that is to do it.
It's so complicated.
It blows my mind that you have this artistic vision and that you have to use this much science and engineering to accomplish that artistic vision, and it just completely eludes me.
Yeah, so I would just go in with like my camera and be like, I'm going to make it look perfect, and then I'd shoot it and I'd bring it back and I'd be like, this looks terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. It looks awful. So yeah, I stuck with film for college, and then I came out here.
So right after Emerson, you came out here. Was it to pursue the film industry, or was it to be like, I want to be in this industry or this marketplace, or?
So it was kind of, well, originally I actually came out here for my final semester of college.
Really?
Yeah, so Emerson has like a satellite program. They have a building on Sunset now.
No kidding.
It's brand new, or I guess it's like 5 years old now. But they didn't have it when I was there. I had to like stay in I guess they're the Ava Toluca Lake now, but they're like the Oakwoods up in Toluca Lake, and go to school at like upstairs from like an insurance agency or something in Burbank. So I did that for a semester, and then I graduated in December. So it was either stay in LA or go back to Boston in the middle of December. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to be in LA.
Yeah,
so.
And what were you? Did you have a thing that you were planning on going back to?
I didn't. No, I kind of imagined that I would end up back in Boston because I really like Boston. It's like a really beautiful city. I love it. But yeah, I don't know. It was just my friends were staying out here, and LA is so much fun, and it's so much warmer.
Oh my gosh.
And I still wanted to do something related to film, so I figured I might as well just stay here and, at the very least, work part-time jobs until I can find something out here and then kind of head in that direction. And
it's a terrific transition town right out of college. Like,
it's fun.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like everybody I had a very similar experience. We may have talked about this before, but my senior year of college, my fall semester I spent out here in a satellite program through the Christian College Coalition. It was called the Los Angeles Film Study Center. And I had an internship at a talent agency, and then and it was just like that immersion.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. And
Oh, it's so exciting.
and like everybody's like, I feel it now, like being surrounded by young people just onboarding in the industry. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 jobs before them, but now they're like the assistant at a talent agency and they're sending out breakdowns and directing people in the booth. And it's like
and everyone out here, not everyone, but like so many people out here are like interested in all the same things that, I was, and I wanted to, be around that. And it's so exciting. And
awesome.
Super fun. Yeah.
It's so great. So you stuck around. What did you find yourself doing? What were some of the gigs you found yourself working in that transition?
Well, it was definitely harder because when I first graduated, I was like, I'm going to try to write, which is a nice idea, but it's very hard to get into. So I worked at like a coffee shop and I worked at a Bath and Body Works and just kind of did part-time stuff. Yeah. And then I, because I was going to write on the side and it wasn't really working out because it's very hard if you don't know anyone and you're, a barista to suddenly break into being a famous writer or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I got a job at Paramount Studios as part of their Page program.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I gave like the studio tours, and I had a cool blazer, and got to drive people around and tell them facts about, Lucille Ball and whatnot, which was really fun.
God. What's your, sidebar. I'll come back to this. What's your favorite Paramount story or fact?
Oh, well, a lot of them, I don't know if they're, ones I heard that like may be apocryphal. One of my favorite stories that we were told when I was in training was that there's a boarded up or like a bricked up door in one of the parks on the lot in what's called Lucy Park.
Yeah.
And the story that I heard is that was Desi Arnaz's dressing room when he was there shooting with Lucille Ball, and that he kept having other women up into his dressing room, and she got so mad that she had the door bricked shut so that he couldn't get out. I don't know that that's true. I would assume it's probably not because that's a crazy story. But I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever heard. So I liked that one a lot. But like every part of the lot, it's so old. It's like the oldest standing, still operating lot in Hollywood, basically, and the only one really left in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of history there, and it was so much fun.
It's one of my favorite lots.
It's so gorgeous.
It is. And like, I was shooting the Thundermans.
Oh, I remember the Thundermans. We used to have to work, like we would go and do like crowd cattle, like
like
herding,
working the crowd
basically.
because
like making people get to the right place to sit down or whatever. We had to do that stuff.
No kidding.
All the time, yeah.
And it's like always, it's like sometimes they shot with a live studio audience, sometimes they didn't. And when I was doing Richie Rich, we never had a live studio audience, but we still had live canned laughter. So the production team would provide all the laughter. It'd be like 8 guys, all the camera guys
screaming their heads off.
And like laughing at jokes that are like kids delivering puns.
Oh my God.
Like that kind of stuff. But I became friends with Chris Tallman, who plays the dad on the show. And when we were shooting our episode, I'm sorry, I wound myself on this track, but it was freaking cool because he was like, Kiff, over here. Do you see that guy over there? He's like, that's William Catt. That's William Catt, who played the Greatest American Hero. It was like one of those great, like, I don't know if you remember that show, Greatest American Hero. So William Catt was on the set, and we were hanging out with William Catt, taking pictures with him. And then the stage floor manager, I was telling us stories about Roseanne because they shot Roseanne on that lot, or in that stage. Remember they shot.
That's the Lucky stage, right? That's where Tom Hanks' Bosom Buddies was shot, and like all of Cheers, right?
Yes, all of Cheers.
And all of Frasier.
Yeah. And I had gone to see a rehearsal of Cheers when I was out here during that semester, and got to meet Ted Danson and Kelsey Grammer and everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Like they were doing a rehearsal. It was like a Thursday, and I brought a still, and they all signed it, and Ted Danson gave it to me.
Oh my God.
Afterwards. It was crazy.
What a thrill.
It was an amazing day. And then to be shooting on that stage.
Yeah.
Anyway, I put up a picture of myself on Facebook like, whoa, 20 years later, and my friend Deanna was like, wait, you're on the lot? Hang on, I'm working over at Adam Ruins Everything. I'm writing. Come over to the bungalow. So I walked over there, and she was like, let's go get a coffee. We jump in a golf cart. And it was like all of a sudden, Hollywood lot life made sense.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Isn't it?
It's like a whole other world. It's so much fun.
It's like the nearest thing I can compare to is like being on a college campus.
Yeah, but like there's just celebrities walking around. Like one of my friends who worked there was driving a tour group around on one of the little golf carts, and it was when Grace and Frankie was shooting on the lot.
Oh my God, yeah.
And Martin Sheen just like hopped out of like he was waiting somewhere and just hopped on the back and was like, "Hey, you guys going back to like, over this side of the lot?" She was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Great, can I come with you?" And she was like, "Yup." And so they just like she just drove Martin Sheen back off to wherever he needed to go.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
What an amazing education.
It was the weirdest first like real like industry related job to have. It was so much fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So how do you leave that gig? How do you transition out?
Part of the job there is once you've been a page for a long time, not a long time, but after a while, they'll kind of put you into other positions that they need filled around the lot.
Uh-huh.
So one of the assistants in production finance had just quit. And so I ended up being like temporarily placed in her position and then eventually hired on full time. Didn't stay there for super long because I ended up starting a job on as a writer's PA on a TV show after that.
Awesome.
But it was really cool, and it was fun to see like a different side. I would definitely say that the driving people around and seeing celebrities was a little more exciting than coming up with like the spreadsheets for what movies are about to come out and how much they are going to cost and all that stuff. But it was still very, very cool and very interesting to be a part of.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So after you transition out of Paramount and you're working writer's PA, was that still at Paramount or was that
No, that was for a Nickelodeon show. So they actually shot at the Burbank Studios, just kind of not too far away from here.
Yeah.
And I did that for a season and then did not get invited back. So, and that's when I ended up interviewing with Jason. So
really?
Yeah, it worked out for the best.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
So tell me about that process. You find yourself transitioning into talent management from working as a writer's PA. Like what were sort of the necessary skills that you needed to make that transition?
Well, the nice thing about kind of how JMT operates is that like they're very willing to train people like all the way.
Wow.
So when I started, I didn't really know much about, it was very entry level. I was just, taking emails, handling stuff as it comes in,
sending
put
out
stuff
samples.
in the calendar. Yeah, send out the audition, do whatever. And then, everybody there was super wonderful and helpful and informative and stuff like that. So it just sort of, the more that I did, the more that I learned, and everybody was very willing to answer questions and show me how stuff is supposed to be done. And so I've been there for 4 years now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me, I've circled around it on the show, but I've never really talked about Jason and about Jason Mark's talent and what the organization does. How would you define Jason Mark's talent?
It's a surprisingly big picture question.
What is Maggie, first begin with the mission statement, and then can you outline a 5-year goal plan that Jason has laid out? Well, who's Jason to start with?
Jay is, he's a very talented manager. He's based in New York. He is kind of obviously the head guy at Jason Mark's Talent, as the name would suggest. So he's been doing it for, I think, 18 years now, I think is how long JMT's been around. We work mostly in trailer and promo, but with other stuff as well, as you know.
Yes.
So that's kind of the main side of things that we handle. But we're a management company, so we work typically sort of in, like as a supplement to, an agent to get additional opportunities that, we might have the connections to pitch people on projects, as we think they're coming out. Just to kind of take a proactive additional hand in trying to get you guys some cool stuff to work on.
How would you define the principle? Like, what's the advantage of having a manager and an agent, or instead of an agent, or what would be your recommendation to, like, let's say a friend is an actor, comes out and they're like trying to sort out, it's an extra 10% to my income, and certainly I've experienced beyond the benefit not only from Jason Marks, but also from my theatrical on camera folks.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate for management. But being inside of it, what do you feel is the advantage? What, you touched on it in the previous answer, but I'd love to just dive in a little bit more.
I think one of the nice things about management in general is that we tend to have like a smaller roster, whereas, an agency has a lot of people to deal with and a lot of different people to get work and get seen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We have a smaller group to work with, which means we can kind of devote more time to each person. Not, I don't want to make it sound like agencies don't devote time to people. I know how hard agents work, but, we don't have as many people to help out with, and we don't have as many people to focus on. So there's kind of, I think, a more tailored approach to it where we can kind of keep an eye more carefully on like who exactly is going to sound perfect on this, and who do we pitch on this, because we have a smaller group of people that we're thinking of to get out there. I think that's a big one. It's a little hard to say in terms of like the day-to-day stuff because I've never been an agent, so I don't want to be like, well, they don't do that, and have them be like, well, I do.
I like there's a big part of this industry that I absolutely do not understand. And it circles around, in particular, trailer and promo, because it seems like, because it's new and it's foreign and it's something that's outside of any other market that I experienced. It's New York and Chicago, or New York and LA kind of exclusively, which is the waters you guys swim in. Yeah. And it's also like you guys are, at least 4 parties a year where it's like, Jason's in town, we're getting together, and oh, by the way, you should come by because it's going to be this person, this person, this person. Oh, and this producer who does trailer stuff is going to be there.
That is definitely a thing that particularly Jay, and I'm sure, others as well, but it's big for Jay to be able to get people in rooms with people and kind of make that connection as well. Because, we send people a lot of different files and recordings and stuff like that. And I think it does really help if people can meet you. And, especially now that everybody has a home setup and there's less going in person and, getting to know those producers. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be able to get you guys in the same spot and introduce you and get that going a little bit.
I agree. What attracts you to to an actor or someone to add on to a roster? Like when you've got a small roster and you want to keep it small, how do you think about building your team? Like, what are you looking for?
I think a major thing for us is we want someone who sounds like somebody that we don't necessarily already have because, we don't have a ton of people, and it's not going to be super helpful if we have, 20 guys who sound exactly the same. That, then they're just going to be competing for the same stuff. So somebody who fills sort of a niche that isn't really being occupied. Versatility is huge, like having you, so you can do ADR stuff that we get, you can do promo stuff, it just helps so much when we know, okay, so we bring this person on, they're going to be able to do a few different things, and they're going to feel more value from us that way, because it's not going to be like, oh, so, I get one ADR job every once in a while, and we want people to feel like they're getting enough out of us as well. So, some versatility, a unique sound, somebody who sounds polished, whether or not they have, whether or not they've been doing it for a crazy long time, just being able to hear, there's a trailer sound, not always the same sound across, every different genre, but you can tell when somebody's comfortable reading a trailer and when they sound like they should be on a trailer, same with the promo. That goes a long way. Like Gabe Kunda, do you know Gabe Kunda? He's a younger guy who's part of our roster, and we first got his demo, and he was like 23 or something like that. He's still really young. He's younger than I am. But he sounded like he'd been doing it he sounded like Howard Parker. He sounded like he'd been doing it for years.
So
he has an incredible voice. He just has it, and he practices like crazy, and, that goes a long way. But he just had that polish. He sounded like he should be doing it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So, like, when you talk about, for example, polish, polish is a great word for that. How do you break that down even further? Like,
it's hard to explain because part of it's just the sound. Like, there's just a quality to it that's kind of hard to put into words.
Yeah. I was talking with my I teach a voiceover improv group on Monday mornings via Skype, right? And I was trying to, Dave Walsh. I was trying to like sort of Dave Walsh with them a little bit about like, okay, so let's try to bring refinement in. Like it was a piece of luxury copy, and it was like, where is luxury to you, and what is luxury really?
Right.
Like it's. I can say luxury, but luxury is going to mean different things to different people. You know, if you're extremely poor, Gelson's is luxury. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm middle class. Gelson's is luxury. Gelson's is a grocery store with overpriced cheese.
I love Gelson's. I would move into a Gelson's. I love them.
Let's go whenever I'm at Century City and want to swing in and get it validated. But like trying to pinpoint like, and the reason I conjure up Walsh is like, like shiny piano black, like modifiers like that to try to give that. What are things that possess that same essence of polish or refinement? Like I did some spots for Maserati a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they were refinement but filtered through me, which is not a necessarily refined brand. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, it's. Oh gosh, it is tough to articulate exactly what that is without just using a bunch of other phrases like that, you know? And I think part of that is that, like, if somebody knows how to take that and interpret it and give a read that embodies that without having to be like, well, you know, raise your pitch this amount and, like, flatten it, without getting in and having to, like, minutely change every little detail, you know, that goes a long way, I think, because it gives you a good sense of how to read copy.
That reminds me of our conversation moments ago about the cinematographer, that in a way – a good voice actor's job is to be able to tweak their intention, their read, their thoughts into those sort of micro adjustments, like engineering, using your voice the way Roger Deakins paints on the silver screen, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And I know, you know, obviously coaching helps with that quite a bit.
Sure.
And then I think there's just a bit of an innate thing to it as well. But yeah, and then just, you know, knowing how to handle the inflection in a way that sounds correct is a thing as well, like going down where you're supposed to go down and, you know, making it sound like you're stopping here. You know, those little tiny things. Sometimes we'll get, you know, reels or something from somebody who's reaching out for representation and it doesn't sound, just the inflection doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be, you know, like obviously if somebody sends me a read as like an audition that is a little bit off, we'll let them know, hey, can you kind of adjust it here and adjust it there? And, you know, but if we're getting like a submission for representation and just all of the spots are like not there, that's kind of like a little flag that maybe this person's not totally ready yet. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. It's true that there's like trailers in particular have a cadence and a style that's very precise, and you can disrupt it in certain ways, but there are things that you kind of have to be in service to make it sound like a trailer or like a promo.
Right. Like we don't want obviously everybody to sound exactly the same, because that wouldn't be fun. And there's so many guys with incredible, cool, and women too, with really cool ranges and different sounds that, you know, it's fun to hear all those different versions. But yeah, I mean, there's rudimentary aspects of it that kind of carries over from each different sound to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, you really do. Like, I feel like when in my journey with JMT, like for a while I was almost exclusively matching. Like that was kind of the space I occupied, and I got it. And I wanted to do more promo, but I didn't really have the ear for it yet or the experience with it. And, you know, and it's one thing for me to say, well, that's a question. How do you transition from one part of your business arm? Like, for example, like, hey, I do this, and I think I can do more, and I'd love the opportunity to show you that I can do more.
We love to hear that. Yeah, absolutely. We would love to see, you know, anyone who works with us try to break into a slightly different, you know, from promo to trailer, from ADR to promo, any of that. We'd love to see people try to stretch outside of their comfort zone. And I think with someone like, with your voice, we might get a request that's like, okay, we're looking for something that's very conversational, that's very like laid back, fun, goofy guy. And we're like, okay, well, Kiff's going to be great for that. He might not have done like a promo thing previously, but we can still send him that. And I know that he's going to do at least pretty well on it,
Yeah.
Whether or not they'll decide to go with you, that's not necessarily in the moment the most important thing to us. We just want people to try something new that they haven't done before and see where it takes them because, we've sent you promo stuff that you've obviously knocked out of the park. So we just kind of try to listen to, what the direction is and keep in mind who on our roster we think can do that. And it is very fun to send people things and have them be like, oh, well, I'm not a trailer guy or whatever, so I don't know that I'm gonna book it, and have the person come back and be like, we loved this guy. I'm like, yes, I knew it.
So how much do you know about it? Because we've had a conversation about I'm not 100% certain how trailers get mid. Do these different production houses? I mean, how do trailers happen? Like who?
Well, it kind of depends. So obviously it starts at the studio.
Yeah.
And a lot of studios have their own in-house production team. And so some people will just do everything in-house and just, handle it that way. Like Universal does a lot of stuff in-house. Disney obviously does a lot of stuff in-house. Yeah. But then also they'll farm it out to other companies around LA. So there's a bunch of different, a couple in New York as well and a lot in LA, different trailer houses around as well. And they'll, pitch on something, present on it. And, sometimes it'll be one company will end up doing all of the work for this thing. A lot of times it's multiple. So we'll kind of get the heads up that, okay, this person and this person and this person are all on this project. And we know who to keep an eye on and who to be in touch with.
If let's say Motion, for example, or Mark Woolen is pitching on something. And then so we'll get an audition for a scratch. So that generally means this is more than likely going to be a pitch thing, right? Or not necessarily?
Mostly if we're pitching on something and you mean if they're pitching on something?
If they're pitching on something.
Okay.
So you might be pitching on something.
So when we find out at the beginning of a campaign just starting up or when something gets announced, usually it's when we start to get ADR requests for actors and things.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to, if we know who if we know who's working on it, we'll just reach out and be like, hey, we know you're working on this, just FYI, these guys would sound cool on it. Keep them in mind, whatever.
Great.
And then once they're ready, sometimes it'll be, usually if it's a scratch read, it means that they haven't gotten approval on the spot yet, if it's like coming from the studio itself.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I think with the trailer houses as well. Or they're presenting it and they want to get onto the campaign with the studio.
Okay.
So that's when, you would do like an audition or a scratch or something like that for them.
Where it's like you're matching script copy that's either here's an interview with Jude Law on a show. Please do this Jude Law-ish
Sound like
copy.
Jude Law.
Please sound like Jude Law talking to Graham Norton.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, great. And then it's like, and then, hey, you're Jude Law.
Right.
And then that's that. Okay. So we've gotten through that portion of it. Mm-hmm. So then we get into the place where the trailer's being made, and then it's like they'll get multiple versions of the piece, and it's often same day, last minute.
Oh yeah, a lot of last minute stuff.
Why is that? Just out of curiosity.
I think things just change really quickly. I know a lot of times it's like down to the wire waiting on an approved script and something has to go out, later that evening. I feel for all of the people who work at trailer houses because it seems insanely stressful. Yes. And every once in a while, I'll get an email and I'll be at home at like 9:30 and be like, I have to, do this thing. And it's easy to get frustrated, but also there are people who are still at their office at 9:30 who are still trying to cut something, who are going to be there for another however many hours. Like,
it's absurd.
It is wild over there.
I was teaching a class at Second City and then had a Tom Hanks thing for Da Vinci Code, and they were like, we need it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm teaching until 10. You're just going to have to wait. And I don't have my recording equipment with me. I'm not going to be home in Santa Monica until like 11. And then they're like, you could come by here. And sure enough, we went to the studio there, and it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like everyone was there. Everyone's at their desks. Everyone's editing. No one was acting like it was unusual.
Yeah. No, they're crazy hours.
Sometimes.
I can't even imagine, honestly.
So, like, I mean, there's aspects of trailer 2 that are just like, so that's that space. It's kind of chaotic and insane.
It's busy, yeah. It's really, really busy.
What about promo? What's that world like in terms of the difference, not necessarily the compare and contrast, but what's the promo world like in terms of?
What particular aspect of promo?
Actually, I think it has more to do with honestly the type of, in a way, the type of read. Like there's, you know, like for. It feels like there's a couple things that we work together in that often feels like in my conversation with other voice actors are somewhat the golden goose. Like people talk about looping in that way. People talk about promo that way. People talk about, oh, well, you get that. You know, it's the golden handcuffs, but what handcuffs? You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And in terms of not necessarily breaking into it, but what skill set are you seeing booking, and what kind of stuff do you hear that makes you go, dude, you crushed it. Fingers crossed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what are the and you touched on this a little bit, but I think I'm interested to know, like, and I know like every network is different.
Right.
It's really kind of
that
tough
is
to pin
interesting.
down.
There are, I think, I don't know if there's more differences in what people are looking for in promo than in trailer, but I think that there's, like, you can get, I feel like, a lot lighter and brighter in promo stuff. If you're doing like a comedy show, like you might not get as upbeat and animated for like a movie, you know, for a trailer, even if it's like an animated movie or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more on that end, and then
That's interesting.
it's just kind of a different range of what people are looking for. It's not necessarily as gravitas-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
I mean, it seems like the best way to prepare for that kind of thing is just to really take in a lot of television and listen to what's being done.
I think there is a very specific promo sound as well. And I know not everyone, like people are tending to get a little bit more conversational now, so it's not necessarily as much of the old school promo thing. Which I think is interesting. I think a lot of people are moving more towards like a conversational sound in both trailer and promo.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It really is.
And I feel kind of bad for all the guys who spent so many years developing their promo or trailer voices, and now they're like, all right, we don't want to sound like that at all. We want it to sound like you're having a conversation with your friend.
Right.
Which I think it's an interesting change.
Do you think it, I mean, when you hear those, not necessarily those reads, but when you hear those finished pieces, like even in watching television, I haven't marked it. I'm going to start paying attention to that a little bit more, especially since we watch a ton of Food Network. Watch Chopped. When it's like I've got movies I could watch, or I could watch 4 episodes of Chopped, which is just as long as The Lighthouse. Anyway, personal problems. But like it's interesting to see how that vibe plays differently with that kind of casual, conversational, almost commercial read in that space.
I think I do think it's a little bit more commercial, and I think that kind of makes sense because you're not sitting in a theater having this big, huge experience in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think even with, you know, TV spots and stuff, they're still kind of going for that sort of big feeling. I think there has to be something that's a little bit less overwhelming when you're just watching television and it's just coming on to tell you, like, when the next show is on or when the Knicks game is going to be on or something like that. You know, it's a little bit less big, you know? It's a little bit more laid back.
Yeah.
You know, a little friendlier for the most part.
Well, there's always talk, too, about the difference between, like, the difference between a television read and a radio read. And the radio, you're in the car and it can be a little bit bigger, but the TV, because it's more of a relaxed environment and there's pictures carrying all that freight, it's just kind of nice to kind of slide it in there.
Just let people have a little break.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You don't need to be yelled at. It's just Ted Allen. It's just Chopped. There's no reason to yell about it. Oh, that's wild. awesome. What kind of stuff, like with my commercial on camera agent, it's headshots.
Mm-hmm.
Here, is it reels? Is it?
It kind of depends. A lot of people will, like a lot of producers when they first come to us, will ask for demos up front, just so that they can kind of, hear everybody and figure out who they like and not spend their time then getting a bunch of auditions and going through all of that all over again.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times people will just want to hear it on the copy and just, hear what it's going to sound like when it's done. And I think it makes it easier for them to just cut it in and, see what it's going to be like and go from there. I personally always prefer it when we can get an audition versus a reel. I mean, I like to have the reels so that we can send them out and be like, hey, nice to meet you. Check out our cool talent.
Right.
That's really helpful. But at the same time, I know so many of our clients are so diverse and so diverse isn't the right word. So I can't think of the word. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to start throwing words at you.
Able to do a lot of things.
Versatile.
That's the one.
Versatile.
Part of the way there. Are so versatile. A lot of our clients are so versatile that, I like to be able to send the producer something so that they're going to hear exactly what they're going to be able to bring to whatever it is that they need. Because sometimes it just doesn't. You can have a great reel, but if they're looking for something specific, it's not always going to be one of the things that you have on your reel. So it's nice to be able to put that out there and say, okay, well, he sounds great on all these other things, but also here's what he's going to sound like. Here's how he's going to knock it out of the park on your specific project and what you specifically are looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, especially with ADR. Every once in a while we get ADR requests where they're like, send me some reels for guys who sound like this. And I'm like, I mean, I can try, but you're really going to want to just send me
if you're not
something.
if you're not refreshing your reel,
right?
Like with who's working now,
exactly.
Like who just won the Academy Award, like I don't have Rami Malek on my reel.
Exactly.
I can probably do Rami Malek but you're relying on who these guys' skill sets on.
Yeah,
versus...
and then I think that they would have to have the ability to listen to that and say, okay, well, he has this thing to his voice, so I think he might be able to do this thing, which is also kind of not a crapshoot, but harder to parse out, especially if you're trying to listen to a bunch of people and get something done on a deadline. It's sort of like, I can just show you. I can just show you what they can do. That'd be better,
That's totally true.
Yeah.
Like trying to, send me something. Like in the correspondence, what do you need said? Like sometimes it's only half the time it's only one line anyway.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of short stuff.
Yeah.
So.
How important is quality?
Like sound quality?
Yeah. Compared to speed. Like that, especially since it always feels like ASAP. And then
everything's ASAP.
Everything is ASAP, and I'm learning that.
Yeah.
And then there's hot rush, and there's rush, hot,
and then there's I've called you 7 times. Please answer your phone.
Oh, good. I haven't got one of those yet. I've only got one. I got one from Dave. It's like, what happened? Why'd you peace out of me? I'm like, oh, sorry, I took a nap. I was up late. But so balancing speed with. Oh shit! I'm over at Century City. I could record on my iPhone. Does that have any value to you, or is it more like?
Well, it kind of depends on what the project is. Like, if we get something and they're like, "We need this now because we're going to cut it in and send it off right now," then it's like not that I don't want to hear somebody's read on it, but it might be more valuable to be like, okay, wait until you can actually get to a place and send it to me so that it's going to sound good enough for them to cut it in and send it along. But at the same time, for the most part, we'd rather have something in front of them than nothing in front of them.
Yes.
And I think most producers are able to listen to a file that's not the quality they want, but still hear, if the voice sounds like what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people come back and say, okay, well, we liked him on this thing, but we can't use this quality, so can he please get to somewhere where he can actually record? And then we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah.
But, if we don't have a file from somebody and we can't send them in, then,
It's kind of like you want the best person for the job, but it's like you want the best available person for the job. It's kind of like if I can't get so-and-so because they're on a plane or they're in traffic, then you take whatever you can. But, But I mean, I think that's it's a perennial thing. Like so many folks are still just trying to get their home booths in a place that's in good shape, let alone a travel kit.
Yeah.
You know?
It's tough. And the problem is that, honestly, I mean, with the ASAP timelines, it's tough on you guys. I mean, you step out to go get groceries and we're like, we need you back immediately. Like,
Yeah.
we get turnarounds where people are like, we need this in 15 minutes or something like that. And, it's coming from a place of severe time crunch on their side. And I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's got to be tough on you guys to have to deal with that kind of stress of like, the sky is falling, get back home right now,
I think it is a sense of learning how to, it's what I appreciate so much about you guys. Like, even for because we had worked together for at least 2 years before we ever met face to face.
Yeah.
I think we met at one of Jason's parties finally, and then I've had the benefit of like coming over and hanging out and doing that kind of stuff and seeing you guys with a little bit more regularity, but just like something as simple as decoding what ASAP means in a way of like as soon as possible and figuring out what the operative word is.
Right.
Is it soon or is it possible?
Right.
And really taking that to heart and being like, do I have to drop all this shit in my cart here at Ralph's and run home to my microphone, or can I check out and park and get in there, and like figuring out and then in so doing and feeling comfortable enough to go, it'll be okay. I'm not going to get Maggie in trouble. Because I think that's my fear is I don't want to get you yelled at by some client because I'm trying to pick out, the right cereal.
Honestly, if we get a request, we do try to kind of relay how urgent it is.
Yes.
And it's tough because literally every single producer, you're like, okay, well, when do you need it back? And they're like, well, as soon as possible is great. It's like, yes, of course. But like, when do you need it back?
Yeah.
And, we try to relay that to you guys as best we can because we don't want you to have to be like, well, I'm at dinner with my family, but I guess I'll just leave and come home, because that, you guys have lives.
But that happens sometimes. And it's
right.
like, and that's a $1,700 choice.
Right.
But
also we want you guys to have the ability to know when it actually is like you need to leave now because they need it now versus like when you get home, please send it, and it can be a little bit tricky to sometimes even for us to figure out how soon they're really feeling on the, producer side of things. But yeah, I mean, we try. We don't want to make your guys, we don't want to make your lives as hectic, as they are sometimes, but.
Well, I mean, I appreciate being able to have this kind of a conversation because it helps, it just, text is incomplete. And it's also like we're team members and I want to be able to give you the things that you guys need so they can get the thing they need so they can go home to their family.
Exactly, yeah.
And give it to them in the quality that they want and all that other kind of stuff. And since, you get put in a position where you're the cartilage sometimes, in a knee that's going bang. Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, being in the middle, there are stressful moments to it, but mostly it's just, balancing that out of being like, well, the folks at the studio are trying to get something done. And also, our clients have other bookings and other things going on in their lives, and trying to balance that out and kind of make it work for both sides it's a part of it,
Yeah, it really is. And I think I'm learning to be more as someone who I think bringing a producer mind to it in the past has made me conscientious, but it's also stressed me out in a way where it's like, it's okay if you have a booking to tell them that you're booked at this time and they can consider another time. Like just something as simple as sharing my Google Calendar with you guys, like so that I can put things on there and look at it and suddenly see, oh, sweet, I'm working. I may be working tomorrow afternoon at 2:15. You know, like but like there's something about that. Being an actor where your life and your availability is a big part of the commodity to open that up to folks and them handle it with the grace and respect that you guys have is something that I really, truly appreciate.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
And it's I think it's something that I actively try to remain mindful of because, we all come from some place where we weren't doing this work.
Right.
And this work is kind of awesome,
It's
amazing.
really cool. It's really cool.
It's really cool. And to be able to yell into a microphone in my closet and have it be shown on a movie trailer is ridiculous.
Yeah. It is. It's so exciting. I can't even imagine how exciting it is from your side of things because it's exciting for me just to be involved in it in any way and to get to hear the reads that, you do and that our other clients do that, there's nothing more exciting than getting a read back from, an audition and listening to it and just being blown away. And, we share it all around. Be like, listen to this one. It's so good. You have to check it out. Like, can you even believe it? We love it. It's fun. It's so cool. And there's just so much unbelievable talent that we get to work with that is just so exciting. And getting to see the final product when everything is done and, the trailer or the promo or whatever is released and getting to hear that as part of this really really cool thing is like, oh, it's so fun.
It's so fun.
It's really cool.
And especially like these, like in a really kind of crazy way, trailers seem to have taken on even more significance and importance in recent years.
I think so.
Have you experienced that?
I think just by nature of being able to see them, on your phone or wherever you are, I think that there's, you can share them with whoever you want to share them with, and you can post them on Facebook. And I just think there's more of it's like a cultural thing now. You don't have to go to the movie theater to see the cool new trailer. You can just watch it on Variety or Deadline or whatever when it comes out. Yeah.
And when a thing drops, like I think one of the first times where I was matching Robert Downey Jr. and they said, no, for this trailer we have to have Robert. We can't have someone else do it because the trailer has that much importance and weight.
Yeah.
And like really respecting that aspect to the industry of the importance of that thing being the herald of this new thing. It's it's freaking
It's really
awesome.
cool.
So what can I do to make your job run smoother and easier so that we're even more effective team? What is your ideal sort of not good boy actor, thank you, but like what are the things that makes life easier for you guys?
Scheduling is a big one. Like I said, we totally understand if you're somewhere and you can't get to whatever it is you're doing. But we like to know. If you're in a big book out for 8 hours of the day, we need to know that.
Yeah.
Well, I would say sending stuff back quickly, but part of that is also on us to make sure that we reach out so that you see things, when we send them to you, because not all of our clients are checking their email all the time or whatever. So, part of that is just we need to check in with you, and you need to get back to us.
Yeah.
Honestly, as long as you are reading direction, submitting for stuff, or letting us know that you're not going to submit for stuff, because sometimes, people pass on things, and that's fine, but we're going to bother you for it if we don't get it back and you haven't told us that you're not going to read for it.
Yeah.
And just, being communicative with us so that we know what's going on with you, and, we can hear from you, and we know how to handle your life and how to relay that to the producers. That's, really all we can ask for.
Yeah.
And willingness to take notes is great as well.
Huh.
We like to give feedback when we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really valuable and helpful too. I've really appreciated guidance in that regard in terms of who to go take a little bit extra buff up on this particular skill set and that kind of thing.
I think that's one of the tricky parts of people not having, not being in the room with a director for stuff is that, if you're just doing it on your own, it can be hard, I imagine, to figure out what exactly you're supposed to be doing on every single thing that you get,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I send you a lot of takes.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of takes are good. I should have mentioned that. The more, the better. Different
Okay.
inflections, different whatever. Yeah, a lot are good.
No one's pushing back on that. It's
No,
kind of like
no. They like
want,
to have a lot to work with.
Okay.
Because if you give us one and that's not quite what they're looking for,
They'll pass.
sometimes they'll be like, hey, we like this person, but, can he tweak this or that? But sometimes they'll just be like, well, let's see what the next guy did. And,
Yeah.
so the more options we can get, the more options we can send along, the better.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Sometimes I feel like in other spaces, I don't want to eat up too much real estate, or there's that idea surrounding, I think, commercial where it's like, if they don't like your first 6 seconds, they don't like your slate in the first 3 words, you're done, Buster. But I feel like in this situation, we're sending it ultimately like directly to editors in a way, right?
A lot of the time, it's more or less getting there, yeah. One thing I have heard is helpful is to, like if you're doing different versions, like if you're doing like the cheerier take and the more somber take and the flatter take, at the beginning of that take to tell them what you're doing so that they know. And I think people hear it more when they're kind of primed to hear it. And I think it also lets them know that there's going to be something different coming later. So if this is a somber take, then they know that there's going to be something that's maybe not as somber coming later on, and they'll, listen through and see what the next one sounds like. And yeah, I think it kind of gives them something to work with and kind of a way to manage their expectations.
That's interesting. I've been doing that in the email to you guys, but it might be worth doing since I know in the email what I've done.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, hey guys, there's 2 takes here. One is a little bit more sports announced. One is a little bit more subdued.
Yeah, just throw that at the beginting. I think it goes a long way.
Just to give them a table of contents at the top. Like, okay, so I did 3 takes. It's this, this, and this. Here are the time codes. I did the second take. Fast forward
30 seconds.
You won't like this. I like this take. This is for me. This is for me. And then all of a sudden they're like, will you please tell Kiff to stop slating? But I do like, I took, I think it was at your recommendation, I took a workshop with Richard Redfield.
He's actually the one who said to do the different. He's the one who told us to advise people to put different slates, basically, at the beginning of each take.
It's really changed how I approach the reads, and it's funny. It's changed how I feel about the reads.
Yeah. In
a really cool way, where it makes me feel a lot less precious about them, and I think it makes them better.
Interesting.
It's kind of like, I did improv. I still do improv, but I did improv for, 20 some odd years working with Second City. And like, what I love about it is that it teaches you that your choices are disposable. And if you make a strong choice, show it, but then let it go and make another strong choice. And then kind of bringing that philosophy to your audition life, I think enriches the options that I give. But it also makes it, It makes the if I say this is like a sultry take, it'll be sultry all the way through, versus I'm gonna try something sultry, but about halfway through I'll start judging my sultry choice, and then it'll turn into a non-committed half-ass, But like by declaring what something is, then it has that character.
It's like you give yourself permission to like commit to it and go with it. Yeah.
And I think in a weird kind of way, in this particular space, both in trailer and in promo, because you're in a funny way, you're part of the show, and you need to commit to the spirit of the show.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's definitely. Yeah, it needs to match up with the vibe. It needs to, if it's a big thing, you kind of have to go as big as whatever it is.
Yeah.
If it's goofy, you have to go as goofy as, whatever it is.
You really do.
Yeah.
You're part of it. And that is, there's and you don't have a lot of time. So it's kind of like this, you've got to dive in fully committed and either match the performance of the lead actor who's lived with this thing for 1.5 years, or match the tone of the show by talking about it with a byline and whatever you can find online. Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And
it's challenging. It seems really challenging. I don't have to do that part, but it seems like it's hard.
It is. But like, at the end of the day, like feeling that I can take those risks, make those strong choices, and send them off to you guys and have them be like, accepted. And like, I really appreciate it when you send me a note back like, dude, that was great. And I don't need a cookie, but at the same time, it's nice because it is tough. And
I imagine like sometimes it'll get busy and we can't necessarily give everybody the response that we would like to.
Sure.
And I always feel kind of bad because we'll get great reads, but if we're just also doing a bunch of other stuff, it might slip by. But
if you've got,
I feel bad that I don't want you guys to feel like you're throwing it out and no one is like we're not acknowledging it or anything like that. So. No. But we love fun reads. We love exciting, we love it to hear you guys get really into things. And it's always fun to listen to your reads because I feel like you always get like very into them and it's so exciting to listen to.
Oh, man. Well, thank you. It's fun. It's the greatest job in the world. So I'm thrilled to be able to collaborate with you on it. Dude, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in and talking about this stuff. And,
oh my gosh, thank you so much for inviting me in. This was so fun and such a cool honor.
Are you on social media? Well, do you guys have a submission policy if people wanted to? If someone's like, this is the thing I've been wanting to do, and I've got the skill, and I have no idea how to pursue this. Do you guys have a submission policy, or how can people find out about?
Yeah, we have a website which is jmtalent.com. And all of the, where to submit and stuff is our emails are listed on there. It never hurts to send something over.
Yeah.
If it's not what we're looking for, then that's fine. No harm, no foul. But, can't hurt to try to hear something cool and fun. So
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And then are you on social media or do you have an active social media presence? Not so much?
Not really. Yeah. Well, our Jason Marks has a Twitter, which our wonderful Chase keeps updated.
Yeah.
Which I think is just J Marks Talent. And we like to post, fun stuff that, our clients have done and cool things to check out there. Personally, I don't have anything. I mean, I have stuff, but it's not interesting, so there's really no point.
My stuff is so boring.
Mine's like, my dog is looking cute today. Here's a picture of my dog. So
I feel like I have nothing to offer when it comes to that stuff. Like, I'm like, I don't know. And then I generally don't post about work because I'm either living under an NDA or it makes me feel like a really narcissistic person. I try to back away from that. But Maggie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Kiff. This was so much fun.
I'm so glad you came in, and it's so much great information. And
I hope it made
awesome.
sense.
Yeah, it did. Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for listening, and there'll be more episodes coming soon. Thanks so much. Peace. This has been All Over VoiceOver with Kiff VH. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please go to iTunes and give us a positive rating. It truly helps. Follow me on Twitter @KiffVH or on Instagram @KiffVH or on Vero @KiffVH. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon. Claim victory and depart the field.
Werewolf?
Yeah.